Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower, this is KLEKLP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council.
Jonesboro's community radio station. Your life, your music. KLEK 102.5 FM.
Good Tuesday morning, Jonesboro. This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 forecast. Mostly sunny skies today with temperatures in the mid-70s, light southwest winds. Mostly clear skies tonight, light winds in the low 50s for the temperature. Dry weather, sunny weather for Wednesday and Thursday, and the high about 80 to 85, and light southwest winds expected. To end the week on Friday, you'll be near 80, partly to mostly sunny. Jonesboro's community radio station, we're KLEK 102.5 FM.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The Central Election Commission of Kyrgyzstan has declared the results of Sunday's parliamentary elections invalid after protests. US President Donald Trump's being criticised for returning to the White House and removing his mask there while posing for pictures. John McAfee's been arrested in Spain and could be extradited to the US. And UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is promising to make Britain the Saudi Arabia of wind power.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Tuesday. It's October 6, 2020. This is Community Conversations. Get one that's in the studio with you. I have Quabila Jones, host of Community Conversations. Join us via Zoom. And today is our Jonesboro City Council Ward 1 Position 2 debate. And we have joined us in studio Mr. Brian Emerson and Mrs. Emma Agnew. And joining us via Zoom is Mr. Brandon Hogan. Now, let me go ahead and give a disclaimer. KLEK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, we do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. These interviews are provided for informational purposes only. I hope you all got registered to vote. Yesterday was the last day. So now that everyone is registered to vote, Election Day is November 3rd. Early voting starts October 19th. You can still get that absentee ballot in. Do it as soon as possible if that's the way you want to vote, preferably dropping it back off at the clerk's office. But if you can't, get it in the mail as soon as possible. So we're going to go ahead. Going to our format for the debate, we will start off with an opening statement, which will be 2 minutes from each candidate, and then we will go into segment 1, which will be questions that Quabila and I have selected. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer the question. Then for our second segment, it will be questions from you, the live feed. Each candidate will also get 2 minutes to answer those questions. And then our next segment after that, each candidate will get to ask at least one question for the other candidates, and then the people responding will get 2 minutes to respond, and then the person asking the question gets 2 minutes to rebut. And then for our next to last segment, each candidate has to say something positive about each of their opponents, and then we will have 2 minutes for our closing statement. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. We will start with Mrs. Agnew with her 2-minute opening statement.
Okay, so what am I including in this opening statement?
Oh, well, just this is your opening statement about you and anything that you want to say. And
Okay.
2 minutes will start now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Laganzi and Quabila, for inviting me. It is a pleasure to be here. And I just want to say that I have been working in the community here in Jonesboro for 20 years, but I've worked in the community. I moved here from Memphis, and I also worked in the community in Memphis, and so I am very familiar with grassroots issues and boots on the ground and being an advocate for those who have no advocate. And so I am very pleased to be in this race for City Council. I worked at the City of Jonesboro for 7 years in grants and community development. And most of you that are listening know me from there or from my first position here in Jonesboro at Beacons and Bridges. And when I retired from the City of Jonesboro from community development in 2018, I have continued to be involved in the community. And I just thought that this was a great time, a good time to run for city council to continue my work with the community and for the community at another level. And so I am excited to be considered. I hope you will support me. I thank you for what you have done and for your good encouraging words so far. But also, I want to add that I do think it's time that the City Council is reflective of the community it represents, that it shows more diversity, inclusiveness. Jonesboro has a very rich culture and a very diverse community, and it's just time that the City Council was more reflective of that community.
All right, and that's time. And looks like we may have lost Mr. Hogan. Let me text him right quick before we proceed forward. This is our Ward 1 Position 2 debate on KLK 102.5 FM. So let me text him, try to get him back on the call. All right, while we wait for Mr. Hogan to hopefully rejoin us, we will go to Mr. Emerson. You now have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Sure, great. Thank you so much, KLEK, for having us back on today. My name is Brian Emerson. I have been born and raised in the city of Jonesboro since 1985. Of course, my mother was a school teacher. She taught over in Brooklyn, but we lived in Jonesboro. My father was a police officer here for the Jonesboro Police Department, retired as assistant chief. And as of today, me and my wife is a school teacher at International Studies, and I am a chief deposit officer for First Community Bank here in Jonesboro. We have 2 sons, Ridge, he's 8 years old, and Hayes, he is 3 years old, and they both keep me very busy and very entertained. But the reason why I'm here today, of course, is to reach out to you. I'm interested, and I would love to be your city councilman for Ward 1 Position 2. You know, something about public service, it's something that it's always been instilled in me. Of course, having a family from the public service background and working for school districts and also working for the community at large. Ever since I've got into my professional career, it's always been told to us to reach out to nonprofits and to engage ourselves in the city that we live in. So through the years, I've been involved with the United Way of Northeast Arkansas, the East Arkansas Planning and Development District, Arkansas Early Learning on their board of directors, the Learning Center, their board of directors, the Jonesboro Public School Foundation, the Jonesboro Residential and Healthcare Facilities Board for the city of Jonesboro, the Jonesboro Safety Sky Cop Committee, and then, of course, another one of my favorite ones was the St. Bernard's Foundation due to my oldest being in the NICU for 2 months. But I say all that to let you know that I have not only lived in the city of Jonesboro, but I've also served in the city of Jonesboro, along with building my family, and I really would appreciate your vote and to be your next city council person for Ward 1 Position 2.
All right, and we thank you, Mr. Emerson. We do have, well, I thought we had Mr. Hogan. He had came back and looks like we lost him again. So I just text Mr. Hogan. So Mr. Hogan, if you are listening or maybe watching on our live feed, if you're having trouble with the Zoom, just call our station phone line, 870-277-1080. Again, that's 870-277-1080. So hopefully he will rejoin us. But we're going to go ahead and go into our first segment. So Quabila will ask our first question, and then she can choose which candidate that she wishes to ask that question to.
So, good morning to everyone, and we'll start with ladies first. Sorry, Mr. Emerson. Okay, so Ms. Emma, what are ways you will work to keep the residents in your ward informed of items that are on the agenda in order for them to voice their concerns in a timely manner before the items are voted on? We know that there are...
I'm sorry, that was a FedEx man. Go ahead. Start over, please. Sorry. I apologize.
Okay. So, if you are elected, what are ways you will work to keep residents in your ward informed that are on the agenda in order for them to voice their concerns in a timely manner before the items are voted on.
Okay. Well, one of the ways, of course, is KLEK. And also another way is one of the ways that we have traditionally used is churches, to send out the information to churches in the city, and also. Let me back up and say that we're talking about Ward 1, but of course, I think most folk know that this is a citywide race, so we're talking about the entire city. But reach out to churches, and also through my networks, through the NAACP, and also through residents in areas, and just whatever networks I have to my disposal, because it is very difficult. Jonesboro is really not the easiest place to communicate to the masses, and I'm not sure exactly why that is, but there has to be a number of ways. You can't just do one. If you're really trying to reach folk, you have to do more than one. And I think the main thing is to get the word out there for people to watch the City of Jonesboro webpage. Those agendas are always published ahead of time, and so if we can get people accustomed to checking the website, being involved that way, certainly one of my goals is to get more people to come to the council meetings who traditionally don't come, and once they get accustomed to coming to those council meetings, they get accustomed to checking for the agenda. So it's going to be a thing of relearning and reimagining how we do things now, as far as including the community.
All right, well, Ms. Agnew, that is time. I apologize for that. Okay. Since we do have Mr. Hogan on there, I'm going to go ahead and go to him next. In case you missed the question, Quabila was asking, what methods would you use to communicate to the city if you are elected to the council? That is correct, right, Q? All right, so Mr. Hogan, we will now go to you, and you have 2 minutes. I'll let you know as your time winds down. Oh, and we lost him. All right, so this technology is not technology is not his friend, obviously. So let me switch over a couple things. It could be. Hold up, now I'm trying to get this. But you know, that's the joys of live radios. You know, we deal with these technical difficulties. All right, so now, Mr. Emerson, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
Sure, definitely. And you know, well, gosh, exactly what we have going on here. Sometimes we do have technical difficulties that do happen, and I do have my internet that goes down from time to time. But, you know, making this a multi-channel approach, I think, is something that's very important, just to piggyback on what Ms. Agnew was saying. You know, you can't really just say that it's one communication channel, and I think that in the past we've seen certain things that have been proven more effective. Of course, with COVID-19 and the way that we've had to adjust to the new way of life with the way that we've been having to meet and have city council and committee meetings. The great thing about social media is, I don't know if it helps anybody else, but the news alert feature, that it pops up and tells me whenever there's a committee meeting that's taking place, and I can tune in and watch it right now. It's a constant reminder that's out there. But not only embracing the new, but also maintaining the old, because there's still individuals out there that still get a lot of their news from the Jonesboro Sun, different ways, door to door, through the churches, through their community involvement. But being able to reach out to those individuals through their preferred channel of communication, I think is something that's important that we maintain. You know, one of my ideas, and the city of Jonesboro has done a great job with their Jonesboro Channel 24, being able to talk about the issues and bringing people on. But also, if we had kind of the same thing that went on as far as a breaking news alert, or basically whenever the agenda comes out, if we were able to get on there and we were able to run down the agenda line item by line item and tell them exactly what was going into that agenda point, and then be able to let them know exactly what they could plan on walking into whenever the city council started, I think would be a great jumping off point to give people a little bit more of a head time, just to kind of learn and understand the issues and be able to educate themselves before it actually came time for the city council meetings. But I think that would be a benefit and help people to get to coming to the city council.
All right, Mr. Emerson, that's time. All right, so we will now go to Quabila for our next question.
Okay, so I know we talk a lot about quality of life, and quality of life looks different for everyone. We also know that our community thrives when everyone is happy and healthy, mind, body, and soul. So again, this is ward specific, well, somewhat. What are some ways you would try to utilize, vacant spaces or green spaces to benefit the community, benefit the ward, that can also spill over to benefit the city as a whole? For example, using some green spaces as community gardens to, grow flowers and vegetables, whatever, in cooperation with holding informational, I don't want to say classes, but sessions. This is one example. So what are some ways you would utilize vacant rundown spaces if you are elected?
And who's going to start that one out?
We'll start with Mr. Emerson.
All right, Mr. Emerson. And you have 2 minutes starting now.
Sure, great, and thank you so much for that question, Q. Community involvement is something that is, it speaks dear to my heart. Getting everybody involved and having green spaces like this, I think, are important. I live over off of Wood Springs, and I don't necessarily have a lot of green space that's around me, but, over there is a couple of green spaces that is within a far walking distance, but making sure that those are accessible and being able to open those up for individuals to go out there and utilize, but also kind of going back to the last thing that we were talking about, being able to tell people about upcoming meetings and creating places where the community can get together and they can exchange their ideas and they can share their voice and everybody can get together and they can talk. I think that's something that would be absolutely fantastic to do. We've got, of course, we've done a great job where you see the fire departments. You usually see, especially a fire station, kind of right beside the one that's down there on the front of Nettleton. That's getting down there by the Jonesboro Pre-K Center along with Annie Camp down there. But that's a great place that a lot of people get together, and I think that if we can put more green spaces to use and bring more of the community together, I think that we can start bridging this voice, sharing our ideas, and moving forward. And hopefully by doing all this, we could even be able to build more community activities such as, there's always soccer leagues and everything else that's going out at Joe Mack Campbell Park, but especially with what we have today with COVID-19, sometimes there's not a good opportunity to get everybody socially distanced enough on those fields, but this would give everybody the opportunity to utilize all the spaces around town and also interacting with their communities that are close to their homes.
All right, Mrs. Agnew, you have 2 minutes.
Well, one idea for green space that I've always thought was pretty awesome is an open air market, where craftsmen and artisans are able to bring their wares or whatever to the public, where local farmers, area farmers could bring fruits and vegetables. So I think this would be a great use of a green space. And West End does a really nice community garden. They do a nice community garden, have been doing it for years. But I think it's important, of course, to have input from the community on what kind of green space they would like to see. And also, I think just meditation areas. I know they are planning on doing the MLK Trail, and of course it would, primarily be in North Jonesboro, but it is for the entire city. And so I think that will be a good use of, that walking trail. So things of that nature, I think, are really great uses for green space. As you say, community gardens are always good. They're beneficial in a number of ways. And so I think, just creating spaces where people can gather and communicate and be neighborly and friendly toward each other and get to know their neighbors. I think is a good idea.
All right, and we thank you both for your responses. So we will now go to Quabila for our next question.
If you are elected, what is the first ordinance or resolution you would put forth to be voted on by the council? And we'll start with Mrs. Emma. We'll just go back again.
Say that again.
If you,
Repeat the question.
if you are elected, what is the first ordinance or resolution you would put forth to be voted on by the council?
Oh. Well, I'll be honest with you. I have no idea at this point what the first would be. I think it would be determined on what's going on and what was going on in the community next year. I do know, and I don't know if this is coming later, but I do know that plan to come back up in Jonesboro is the issue of by ward voting. So that would be an early one on the agenda. But as far as what I would put forward, I mean, I have some ideas. One big idea, and would probably be one of my first, if not my first, is the fact that Jonesboro does not have a community revitalization strategy. And so I think it would be very important for the city council and the city to approve starting a revitalization strategy and to move that strategy forward, involving the community and residents, and then at some point approval of that strategy at the council level. So I think that would probably be my first on my own to put forward.
All right, before we go to Mr. Emerson, we had Mr. Hogan join us on the phone, but you may have heard the old school So we're still fighting this technology to get Mr. Hogan on. So Mr. Hogan, I know that you said that you had to drive somewhere to get a better signal. Just please call back and just hold the line, and we will definitely get to you. We definitely want to make sure that we get you included in on this debate. So we will now go to Mr. Emerson, 2 minutes. What resolution or ordinance would you put forward first if you are elected to the council?
Sure, definitely, and thank you for that question, Ms. Q. One of the things that we briefly touched on last time was, of course, getting people more involved with local city government. One of the things that I would really like to kind of pick up and run with is that, I was a graduate of Leadership Jonesboro back in 2015, best class ever, by the way, and what we would like to look at doing, or at least what I would like to look at doing, is partnering with some of the high schools and or colleges. I really think that college probably has more of an overall broad view at the end of the day, but getting the high schoolers that are interested in leadership and basically teaching them the ins and outs of local government, and whenever they have an issue, the departments that they can go to, exactly what all the departments do, what quality of life truly means, what public safety means, what the grant department does, what the road department does, and explaining all this. So whenever they do have an issue and they're learning to be citizens and living in the town that they've grown up in, it lets them know the channels that are available to them. But not only that, but also mentoring them and letting them come to city council meetings and bringing them in as honored guests and kind of showing them the process, what it's like to bring forward a subject, something that is dear to their heart, and actually standing up in front of the city council and telling people exactly what's going on in their communities, what they would like to see be done differently, things that it's going to teach them how to move forward and how to become a constructive member of our society that we all live in. And it's going to be able to not only help them today, but going forward, no matter what town they live in. Of course, we want them to continue to stay in the city of Jonesboro, and teaching them from at the very beginning that investment can hold these people here and make sure that their voices are heard going forward.
All right, and that's time. We definitely appreciate both of y'all's answer to that question. That's going to do it for this segment, and we appreciate everyone that has checked in. We appreciate everyone who has dropped questions on our live feed, because when we come back from the break, that is what we're going to do next. We're going to ask the candidates questions that you have posted on our Facebook live feed. So stay with us. Do not go anywhere. Back with more. This is Community Conversations, Jonesboro City Council Ward 1 Position 2 debate on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Do you flirt with your spouse? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. Flirting with your spouse is a good thing and can reap a lot of benefits. So here's some fun, playful, creative ways to flirt with your spouse. Leave a note for her on her pillow or mirror before you go on a trip. Something specific like, "Thanks for taking care of so many details when I'm gone. You do a great job." Or leave a note on his car rearview mirror saying, "I'm jealous of this mirror because it's looking at you." Maybe turn on your favorite song on your smartphone and dance in the kitchen with her when she least expects it. Not every idea works for every spouse, so try different things. For more ways to flirt with your spouse, visit my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
Made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. KNOMEGA1908.com.
Brought to you by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, dedicated to the purpose of achievement. Jonesboro Alumni at gmail.com, Jonesboro AR Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity on Facebook, and Jonesboro_Kappas on Instagram.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Now we're back on Community Conversation on KLEK 102.5 FM. This is our Jonesboro City Council Ward 1 Position 2 debate. We have in the studio Mr. Brian Emerson and Mrs. Emma Agnew, and we're still trying to get Mr. Brandon Hogan on. We've been having some technical difficulties with him, so if we are for some reason unable to get Mr. Hogan on, I hope Mr. Hogan will watch the live feed and respond to the questions in the live feed that are posted. Now, I also hope that each one of you here in the studio will respond to the questions as well, because we may not be able to get to all of them, but we're going to try to do the best we can. So we are going to start with Mr. Emerson, and this is actually kind of grown out of some comments that you made last night at the Tea Party Forum. Scott McDaniel says, for Brian, last night at the Tea Party event, you stated that you were against the Team Jonesboro initiative. The Tea Party pointed out that you were listed as a supporter. Many people within Team Jonesboro feel betrayed by your apparent switch in stance. What do you have to say to the people of Team Jonesboro who, until last night, were planning on supporting you? And please don't try to placate. Just give us an honest view. Were you ever really with us? Are you against us now? We need to know, because we need to tell our supporters where you stand.
Sure,
Mr.
definitely.
Emerson, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Sure, definitely, and thank you, Mr. Coleman, for bringing that up. That was something that...
that's Mr. McDaniel.
Oh,
That's
McDaniel, I'm sorry. That was something that I wish that I caught a couple of people after the meeting last night and explained that. Basically, what it was, whenever we were first told about the Team Jonesboro initiative, of course, one of the main things in my top priority is basically public safety. And at the time, of course, Chief Elliott and Chief Miller both came out and they made the statement that they needed additional officers, they needed additional fire departments, and that, of course, is something that I was 100% in favor of. Whenever it came down to the quality of life portion of that and what the funds from the tax incentive were actually, not incentive, the tax revenues were actually going to be utilized for, no, it seemed that there wasn't really anything targeted to me personally, and that was a decision that it kind of grew as the project ran on, and basically the projects that were at hand I never really resonated with and truly didn't understand what I was voting on, what that would have necessarily had been. So I will come out and I will say this, that if it was separated for a public safety issue, of course I would have voted on that. If it was basically the way that it was, I didn't support it in its current form. So if there was any way that we could have done public safety by itself, of course I would have supported that 100%, but quality of life and the way that it was approached and the target for what the funds were going to be utilized for and in what kind of time frame they were going to be utilized for separate projects, that was just something that I really did not feel comfortable with voting on. So I say I'm sorry that if that was any confusion to anybody or anything else, but it was just, that was my personal stance on it.
All right. We're going to try this again with Mr. Hogan. And so, Mr. Hogan, the question before us is, did you support the Team Jonesboro initiative, yes or no?
Well, really quick, while I'm actually on on with you. Just a real quick introduction. My name is Brandon Hogan, running for Ward 1 Position 2 City Council in Jonesboro. I attended Arkansas State University here in Jonesboro. Went for a bachelor's in history. After that, I joined the Army as a medic. I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to be there to help people. I wanted to be the person that made sure the person, the guy next to me got to go home to see his family at the end of the day. That was my goal. I wanted to, try to help people, and that's what I want to do for Jonesboro. As far as, political leanings, I would say I'm not left or right. I would have to be classified as some kind of third position. And I think people are ready for that. I think it's time for a good third option, and that's what I represent. As far as Team Jonesboro, in its current form, I don't think it's necessary.
Oh, you got to
think
put your
the money
headphones on,
is
Ms.
there.
Agnew, to hear him.
I'm sorry?
Now, I'm telling Ms. Agnew you got to put your headphones on. Let me add a few more seconds back to you. But basically, I was just telling her to put the headphones on so she can hear your response.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead, continue. You got about a minute.
Okay. As far as Team Jonesboro, the way it was written, I don't think it's necessary to add a tax necessarily. If I thought it was, we could talk about that and we could look into that and how to structure that. Mr. Emerson, being the financial man, might have more to say on it than I would. That's not really my area of expertise per se. But I've looked at the budget and there's money there. There's money there that's being wasted. And
30 seconds.
I've got only
30
a few
seconds.
There's money wasted. Things like $8,000 radios and $5,000 copy machines and $100,000 for a barbecue fest paid for by the city. And I'd like to see where that $100,000
15
went,
seconds.
because most of that is run by the individual businesses and not by the city. So I think there's money there that could be spent better.
All right, we thank you for that, Mr. Hogan, and definitely appreciate your patience in trying to get this technology to work. We will now go to Mrs. Agnew. Did you support the Team Jonesboro initiative? Why or why not? And 2 minutes starts now.
Yes, I supported the issue. I did have some questions. I was a late on boarder, but after talking with Team Jonesboro and getting a better understanding of what they were trying to do, then I was in support of it. My issue from the beginning, and I talked with Mr. McDaniel about this, is I was very disappointed that it didn't start from the grassroots up. It kind of started at the top and then dwindled down to the grassroots. So the grassroots were the last group of folk that actually had input. And by grassroots, I mean, of course, just, ordinary citizens who work every day to try to make a living. And so I had an issue with that, but after talking with Mr. McDaniel, I did decided that it was an issue that I thought was worthwhile. There were some ways in the plan as how to get money in certain neighborhoods with the presentation of proposals before a committee. And so I was a supporter of Team Jonesboro. I am a supporter of Team Jonesboro.
All right, we thank you all for your response. Our next question comes from Mr. Henry Burrell, and it says, my question is about the gun range. This is a huge investment. Does it benefit the majority of Jonesboro? Are there other projects or concerns that had a higher priority? And we're going to go to Mr. Hogan to start this. Mr. Hogan, you have 2 minutes.
I would say that a gun range isn't something that's necessary. It shouldn't be the first thing on the list as far as financial investment or resource investment. But it is something that the people of Jonesboro want, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it's their money. They can spend it the way they want to. If that's what's voted in by the people, then that's what's done with the money.
Okay.
I try to be a concise person, so I'll leave my time, yield my time to the next speaker. There's not much more to say on that.
All right. Well, we thank you, Mr. Hogan, for that response. We will go to Mr. Emerson, and let me get the clock reset. You now have 2 minutes.
Sure. Great, thank you. And I'm glad you brought up that question about the gun range. There's been a lot of information that's been put out there on the gun range, but this is going to be something that's going to be beneficial for the entire city of Jonesboro. Everybody that I've talked to that has that's come to me on this issue and had any questions about it, I feel like at the end of it we've been able to decide that it was a great thing for the simple fact that the outlook for it is not only having a place for people to take their families out there, people to have recreation and not having to leave the city of Jonesboro. Of course, going into things like trap shooting is a big competition that's going through high schools and different organizations. But by having that here in the city of Jonesboro, that can also bring tourism dollars and more money to our A&P Commission for putting the heads in the beds out there at the hotels. So basically what this would allow us to do is that hopefully the idea is that by going out here and by the gracious donations of City Water and Light with the utilities and also the illumination of those facilities, it makes us a better facility to house things like trap shooting tournaments and things of that nature for all local area schools, also from around the state. But for tournaments that we've seen take place across the rest of the state of Arkansas, this has been able to bring in anywhere from $3 to $5 million annually in tax revenues for these additional tournaments by people coming, dining in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, staying in our hotels, and going out here and supporting our local businesses. So this is something that I think that's going to end up being not only beneficial to the citizens that are already here, but it's also going to be a revenue driver for even those that aren't necessarily interested in the gun shooting range. It's going to benefit our entire city.
All right, and now, Mrs. Agnew, you now have 2 minutes.
Okay, my answer will probably be short, like Mr. Hogan's was, because I am not very familiar with the gun range. Not only am I not very familiar with it, it's really not a project that gets me excited. And so I'm not going to be long-winded about it. I do feel that it would have been a low priority on my list of things to be funded. Low priority on my list for land to be donated for this to be built. I think the number of people that will actually benefit from it. I know it's recreational, and I get it, and I have no problem with that. And for people who love gun ranges and love the kind of things that Mr. Emerson talked about, I have no problem with that. That's fine. But I think it's a small portion of the community that will actually benefit from that gun range.
I would thank Ms. Agnew for that. And our next question, I'm actually going to combine two questions because I think they are related. Tanya Green says, with the current racial divide and climate across the country, what would you do as city council person to bridge the divide and bring inclusion and harmony against all racial and socioeconomic demographics? And David McAvoy, too, says, do you support expanding the city's non-discrimination policy to include LGBTQ people? So basically, part one is, what would you do to bridge the racial divide in the city, and do you support expanding the city's non-discrimination policy to include the LGBT community? And we will start with Mrs. Agnew. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I do support the city expanding the anti-discrimination policy. I understand this is a state level issue. This is the way the policy is written at the state, and cities cannot change that at the local level as far as citywide, but cities can change that policy for city government. And so I do support the city of Jonesboro changing that at the city government, and even at some point the community writing to their legislatures and changing that at the state level as well. As far as this racial divide, we will remind you that voting is coming up. This racial divide has just gotten worse and worse over the last few years. And so I would encourage you to vote. That's the best way to deal with that. But we have to realize that we're all in this together. And we can work things out a lot better if we cooperate, if we love each other, if we learn to appreciate each other for who they are and for what they bring to the table. It takes all of us to make our country better, our state better, our city better. And so I just, would encourage people to look at people for who they are and not judge people on face value. I think we just need to show more love for one another and try to be more understanding of each other. And we've been fortunate here in Jonesboro so far as open racial divide, but we do realize that there is racism in the city of Jonesboro, and we do hope that we will learn to love each other and just appreciate where each other's coming from.
All right, and that is time. We're going to now go to Mr. Hogan. Mr. Hogan, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, I would start off by saying that I would agree, actually, with Ms. Agnew when she says we are in this together. And in order to get that kind of mindset in people, you have to stop obsessing about race and division. When you make everything about race, that's what people think about. That's how people identify themselves. And you have in-groups and out-groups and us's and them's, and it should be everyone is us. It's all we. And so I think the best way to handle that is to stop obsessing over it. It's a reality. People have tiny differences, and that's fine. But that doesn't have to define us, and I think that's something that identity politics and politicians take advantage of, and they push that narrative. And we see it in the media making big deals about small things and small deals about what should be probably bigger things. As far as non-discrimination, any kind of legislation like that leads to quotas. Okay, any kind of legislation like that leads to quotas. You have to have X number of this group and X number of that group, and again, that's just more division, and it leads away from meritocracy, which is what hiring and filling positions should be. You find the best person for the job, not the person that identifies in this specific way.
All right, is that it, Mr. Hogan?
That's all I have to say on it. Yes, sir.
All right, we will now go to Mr. Emerson.
Perfect, great, and thank you for that question. I will go ahead and I'll say that once again, 100% spot on. I don't think Ms. Agnew could have said it better. That we're all in this together, and making Jonesboro move forward is going to take all of us. And whenever we're all heading the same direction and making that move, I think that it's so much better. Whenever we take a look at all this, as many people as we can get around the table to the question, should the LGBTQ, I think I said that right. I hope I got my acronyms right. I say having more.
It's actually LGBTQIA.
Thank you. There we go. I think having those voices around the table is a good thing. We have the diversity committee that was actually put together back in the past. I think that that's something that by putting all these people around the same table, making sure that we have all the voices that comprise our entire city sitting around and being able to make their voices heard, make sure that everybody is once again on the same page and moving forward. I think that would be I think it's definitely a good thing, and I would definitely support that.
All right, and we thank you for that. We're going to do one more, and this comes from Teresa Beck, and she says, let me go scroll up and find it. She says, what do you plan to do about the blight that harms our city, both aesthetically and economically? And Mr. Emerson, we will go back to you. You have 2 minutes.
Sure, definitely, and thank you for that question, Ms. Teresa. There's a lot of different options that are available to us out there, and I think the city is actually going in some really good directions with the beautification committee that we've recently seen that was created during the previous year. And especially, I feel like it probably would have been more had it not been to COVID-19 and trying to understand exactly what we could do and what we couldn't do in those cases. But going forward, different things that are available to us, and I know the city's done a great job job through their grants department and also working with the federal and state governmental agencies is basically going out here and seeking additional funds for cleanup. And I believe it was on a Facebook post that we were discussing this back earlier, that, there's a FEMA money that's out there, there's HUD money that's out there, there's even Department of Labor money that's out there that hopefully would be available to us through those emergency grants that are available. Even with the Department of Labor, some of the things that they've been able to offer is not only cleaning up these blighted areas and taking care of these trash and debris and everything else that we've seen from the previous disasters, but it's also creating jobs for those that don't have them. With COVID-19, we did see a lot of layoffs, a lot of people's lives changed, and a lot of businesses didn't reopen. And as we continue on, basically by going out here and utilizing these grant programs to not only make our city more beautiful, more receptive, and make people want to come here, but it'll also get these hardworking people of the city back to work, and it'll also bring more money to our economy. And at the end of the day, it's really taking care about our citizens and taking care of this community that we call home.
All right, we will now go, let me get the clock reset. We will now go to Mr. Hogan. You have 2 minutes.
What we're talking about is not a funding issue. It's an interest and participation issue by the community. You can't have constantly hiring new people to do these things like pick up people's yards and the trash that individuals, are throwing out of their car just because they don't care what their city looks like. You have to instill a sense of pride in the community, and the people themselves should be taking care of their own lawns. I go on morning walks every morning. I wake up early around 5 o'clock, and as I'm going, if I see a can on the road, I pick it up and throw it in the next trash can I pass by. If more people did things like that, we wouldn't really have an issue. Now, when you come to the bigger projects, like when we had a tornado come through and there are, a whole building that's torn into splinters and needles, then we can talk about having some kind of beautification project to kind of pick that up and clean up that area. But it's more about getting people invested in their own community than it is about finding some kind of way to make government fix this.
All right, is that your final answer?
Yes. Again, I'm usually a pretty concise person, so okay. I try not to rattle on, at least.
All right. Well, we will now go to Mrs. Agnew and to get this clock reset, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, when I worked with the city of Jonesboro, I had the opportunity to work quite a bit with the Environmental Protection Agency about blight and brown space. And when we talk about blight and brown space, we're actually talking about dilapidated buildings, junkyards, and things of that nature. We're going a little beyond yards and lawns. So we're actually talking about spaces that can be reinvented, as Q talked about earlier, use for green spaces. The Wolverine plant that was vacant for so long over in North Jonesboro, that was a blighted property, and it eventually was torn down. So the EPA, we had an opportunity to apply for a grant. Matter of fact, we applied for 2 while I was there. We were not fortunate enough to get anyone, but they provide consultants to help put those grants together. And of course, they're very competitive. We also develop a catalog of blighted spaces. So I'm sure that's still at the city somewhere, but there's a catalog of spaces that fit the definition of blight and brown space. And so there are a number of areas. I think people would be shocked at how many actually fit that definition all over the city. It's not just one community. And so Teresa will just have to keep trying to get funds, whether it's having the city rebudget funds or applying for grants to tear down some of those dilapidated buildings and rebuild green spaces or put buildings in those spaces. We'll just have to keep working on it. We did several meetings with community input.
Exactly. I apologize that it's
Okay.
time. All right, and that's going to conclude this segment of our debate. Thank you to each and every one of you that submitted questions. And again, I implore all three candidates, later on, sometime we have some free time today or tonight, go back on the live feed and answer the questions that we did not get to, because these are constituents that will be potentially voting for one of you. So again, we just ask that you go back and answer the questions that we did not get to on the feed. Gonna get ready to go into our next break, but when we come back from break, the candidates are going to ask questions of each other. Also, to Mr. Hogan, please do not hang up the phone. Stay on the line. We're getting ready to go into a break, but we will come back with more. And don't you that are listening or watching on our live feed, y'all don't go anywhere either. This is our Jonesboro Ward 1 Position 2 debate on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Let's be honest, infomercials are captivating. However, despite the risk-free promises and the buy now, get a second one free pitches, the products sold by infomercial companies don't always live up to the hype. To help avoid problems with purchasing products advertised through infomercials, the Better Business Bureau recommends that you take these steps. Avoid being caught up in an urgent sales pitch. Take your time to consider the purchase. Research the company and product. Go to bbb.org to obtain the business review on the company and check its BBB rating. The Better Business Bureau also recommends buyers immediately notify sellers if items are disappointing, damaged, or do not arrive as anticipated. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, focused on joy in our sisterhood, power in our voice, and service in our hearts. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Guide-Right Jonesboro Kappa League, a nonprofit organization that guides young men to a life of achievement. Kappa League Jonesboro on Facebook, Jonesboro_Kappa League on Instagram, and JonesboroKappaLeague@gmail.com.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
KLEK thanks Scott Young and Andy Storage and Rentals, LLC, for helping us serve the Jonesboro community by providing a Go Mini storage trailer. Andy's offers storage units, storage, and moving containers. Details 870-897-7999.
It's me, your heart. High blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. Just treat me better. After all, we're in this together.
Get your high blood pressure to a healthy range. Visit heart.org/blood pressure from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
KLEK thanks the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life, such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Arkansas Early Learning prepares children up to 5 years old for kindergarten by offering a secure learning environment, qualified teachers at several locations in Northeast Arkansas at no cost. Applications are available at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
KLEK 102.5 FM salutes small businesses. Small businesses promote local character and success, keeping money in the local economy, local jobs, entrepreneurship, community well-being, and so much more. Contact us today to learn more on how your small business could be featured on KLEK for as little as $25 per month. Shout out to Sonia Sanders Realtor, there for you whether buying or selling a home. Listings and other information is available at soldinjonesboro.com. Sonia Sanders Realtor on Facebook, 870-275-8712. Shout out to Stephanie Sweat, licensed clinical social worker, owner and therapist at Vibrant Therapy. Depression, anxiety, self-esteem, work and life balance. 870-433-2870, vibrant-therapy.net.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. It is now time for our next segment, and I will let Quabila explain what we're about to do here.
All right, so we thank you all, each of you candidates, for answering the questions that we prepared and that the residents of the city of Jonesboro has prepared. Of course, there are many more questions, so as Leganzi stated, when you have time, please go back and answer those. Now we're going to get into giving you the opportunity to ask your opponent one question. And so we're going to start with Mr. Hogan. Since he's been having such a hard time today, we'll let him go first, asking whomever he would like to ask a question.
And he can also ask it could be to either candidate or both candidates as well. So, Mr. Hogan, are you still with us?
Yes, sir, I am here.
All right, so go ahead. So go ahead.
Of both candidates, or one question of each candidate?
You can address it to either candidate, or both of them can answer. But
one question.
Okay. Well, Mr. Emerson, I would say, do you feel that there's any kind of conflict of interest, being that you work in the financial sector and are trying to work in the government sector at the same time? Do you not see a conflict of interest there?
All right, hold on, let me get this flipped over. Trying to work all these buttons at the same time. All right, Mr.
Or I would say at least a potential conflict of interest. I'm not trying to accuse you, but a potential conflict of interest.
All righty, so Mr. Emerson, you now have 2 minutes to answer.
Sure, definitely, and thank you, Mr. Hogan. Actually, to tell you the truth, that question came up in my own head before I decided that I was going to go ahead and I was going to run for city council. I reached out to many different people around town, and I asked them if I missed something in Banking 101 class, if a reason why I've not ever seen a banker that was actively running for city council or served on the city council. And the big thing is there's a lot of things that are constantly going on in the city. However, I want everybody to know that I've always been very forthcoming with information. Anybody that's ever served on any boards with me or anything else, anytime that I had even a slim connection to anything else, I've always come out and said, hey, I may be considered a conflict of interest to this, and usually I get an eye roll, and you connected like 15 dots to make that happen. But at the end of the day, if there's ever a project that my financial institution that I work for is directly involved in, or if there's anything that directly involves me, of course, I'm going to take a back seat to that. I'm still going to be part of the conversation just to make sure that our voices are heard. Everybody that's in the city gets a voice, and I'm, of course, always going to have an open door policy. So I will do that. But whenever it comes to voting or anything else like that, of course, I will recuse myself if it's something that's directly connected to my financial institution.
All right, and Mr. Hogan, would you like to rebut that? You have 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Okay. Well, I would say if you're having to recuse yourself from all of these that may be a conflict of interest, then you're not really participating in 100% of the issues that are brought before the city council. So would that not make you less effectual because you're having to pull yourself out of so many votes? And then, we have a city council of 11 50% of the time, or even if it's 20% of the time instead of 12, and then you're not representing your ward or the city because you're not, even if you're voluntarily taking yourself and recusing yourself from that issue, you are then lessening the representation that people of Jonesboro have on the city council.
All right.
And if I can add just one more thing, if you're having to recuse yourself very often, wouldn't you say that that's maybe a sign that you shouldn't be there in the first place? All
right. We thank you for. Did you have a question for Mrs. Agnew?
Well, I would say, Ms. Agnew, it's obvious that you're very passionate about minority issues. You know, you spoke several times about this. But the way that democracy works is serving the majority. So what would you do as a city council person to focus less on what you have done in the past, and instead of serving 19% of Jonesboro, serve 100%?
All right, Ms. Agnew, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to always be passionate and talk about what I have done and what I will continue to do. I am retired, and I will continue to work with underserved populations, low-income individuals on issues that affect them during the day. As a city council person, of course, I'm representing the whole entire city. The entire city brings issues before the council, and the council votes on those issues. And how the council votes is directly reflected of how the council lives day to day. And that's why it's so important to have diversity and inclusion on the city council, because that has been an issue that has not been totally addressed. So issues that come before the council agenda, the mayor approves the agenda, and the agenda goes before the council, and the council serves the community by voting on that agenda and making sure that those agenda items are going to be good for the city of Jonesboro.
All right, Ms. Agnew, is that your final answer?
That's it.
All right, so Mr. Hogan, let me get this reset. Mr. Hogan, you now have 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Well, Ms. Agnew, as you said, 100% of the citizenry of Jonesboro can bring issues before the city council, but if you were voting specifically and solely for 19% of the citizenry, then that's the opposite of democracy. I mean, you're not working for the betterment of Jonesboro. You're working for the betterment of a specific portion of Jonesboro, and I would say that's a better way to look at it, is trying to bring the people together and work for everyone as a whole instead of one small portion.
All right, Kwabila, who would you like to ask the next question?
All right, we'll go with Mr. Emerson.
All right, let me get this clock reset. All right, so Mr. Emerson, hold on. We're going to set it up. Okay. All right, Mr. Emerson. So again, you can ask a question for both to answer, or you could do them separately.
Sure. Gotcha. Hey, I'm all about efficiency ratio, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to ask a question to both candidates here. But I wanted to get each of yours opinion on how would you address the growing homeless population that we see that's coming into the city of Jonesboro, and what steps would you take to further reduce that?
All right, we'll go with Mrs. Emma Agnew, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Homelessness is also an issue that I worked with while I was employed at the city of Jonesboro. And I actually led the mayor's task force that created the hub downtown. So that is one way that homelessness is being served. But also, until Jonesboro agrees to put a homeless shelter somewhere, there's just not a whole lot that's going to be done for the homeless population. I did apply for and receive a couple of grants to work with homeless and near homeless to put them in housing and to help pay for rent for a year, to give them an opportunity to get on their feet and help them find jobs and work through jobs. So we're going to have to come up with a thorough plan of how to get people out of homelessness, how to have people work out of homelessness. But again, that's a long-term plan that's going to have to be designed because I realize that you can't just take people off the street and put them into homes without some kind of step up. And actually, some folk don't want to come off the street. We have talked to people who that's where they live. But there are ways to design plans, to do step-ups, to have people come off the street. There is governmental assistance to help people get off the street. But until there is a shelter built somewhere, we've done homeless counts for years and years. The government requires it, but we do those counts, and we have, I think, probably more people in Jonesboro homeless than we
Ms.
realize.
Agnew, we're going to have to leave it there. I apologize. It is
Okay.
time. So we will now go to Mr. Hogan. You have 2 minutes.
I would say that the solution lies not in building a shelter to shove all these people into to get them out of our side, out of sight, out of mind, and also not in just handing over money. It would lie in perhaps some kind of vocational training program, apprenticeship, something like that, to give them skills to get a job so that they can afford their own homes. And also, a lot of homeless people are suffering from mental illnesses, and it makes it hard for them to keep a job. And so I think more focus should be put on that. Programs to bring them into these mental health facilities for treatment, inpatient or outpatient, either way. Having worked in the medical field, I've seen how that works and I've seen the results. And once you address those underlying problems, everything else tends to fall in place. And if you combine that with the vocational training or something like that, then I think the problem is largely taken care of.
All right, is that your final answer?
Yes, sir.
All right, we thank you for that. So let me get this reset. And now, Mrs. Agnew, so now you will get your opportunity to ask a question either individually or collectively.
Does he get a rebuttal?
Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't get. Oh, thank you for reminding me. So I apologize for that, Mr. Emerson. All right, 2 minutes for your rebuttal, Mr. Emerson.
Sure, definitely, and thank you, Miss Agnew. Basically, those are both fantastic answers. And to tell you the truth, I asked that question because I want to show that we can bring so many different people to the table that have so many different ideas, and we can build on those ideas, and we can make great things happen here in the city of Jonesboro. Not only for the people that, of course, get to wake up, get to go to work every day, get to send their kids off to school, but also the ones that are the downtrodden and found themselves on hard times in life. So, going forward, what I would like to do, and especially kind of looking at going into these PPPs, the private-public partnerships that are available, there's been different metropolitan areas throughout the United States that have been able to basically kind of bring both positions together on what both you, Miss Emma, and Mr. Hogan had spoke about, by bringing together a center that's out there and being able to, number one, take care of people until they can get back on their feet. Number two, be able to provide different kinds of vocational training. Three, being able to provide nutritional services that are out there. And also, for the final, any kind of just generalized health care that's available. Of course, the Jonesboro Church Health Center is a great outlet that's here in town that goes that a lot of people just show up to the emergency room, but they don't think about things as far as the free health care clinics. But by bringing everybody together and being able to discuss the problems that our city does face, I think that by bringing these ideas to the table and working together, we can make Jonesboro a better place, not only for, like I said, everybody that gets to wake up and go to work every day, but also take care of the problems of the people that haven't been so fortunate as the rest of us.
All right, and we thank you for that. Again, apologize for skipping over you. All right, so now we will go to Mrs. Agnew for her question.
Okay. I will do a dual question like Mr. Emerson did. I would like to ask both of these gentlemen. Mr. Hogan has spoken about City Council representing 100% of the population. And so his question to me was about the majority of the community. So I'd like to ask you guys about the minority of the community. Now, he mentioned 19%. That's the African American population in Jonesboro, about 19%. And the Hispanic population, I believe, is at 5-6% now. Oh, Leganzi?
I haven't checked latest
So
numbers.
we're talking about a little over 25% of the population that's not in the majority. So I would like to know from you guys, if the City Council is to represent 100%, how are you going to vote and represent issues that affect the minority community?
We'll start with Mr. Hogan on this one. You have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, I would say I wouldn't put any special emphasis on it. I don't subscribe to identity politics. Again, like I said, I'm not left or right. I would be some third position, and I'm not. I wouldn't call myself in description. I'm a white man. I would say I'm an American. I'm a veteran. I'm a nurse. I don't think that because I don't look like you, I can't have the same ideas or same issues or same problems that you do, and so I don't see it as a problem. If Ms. Agnew or Mr. Emerson both have the same issue and they both have the same view on something, they can vote the same way, no matter what they look like or what kind of family they come from. I see it as a non-issue, and to focus on it so much and to make that so much a part of your identity, I think is just folly, and I think it's actually dangerous, and it leads to the kind of division and unrest that we've seen the last several months across the entire country.
All right, so
that would be my answer right there.
All right, well, now let's get this flipped back over and reset. Now, Mr. Emerson.
Sure, definitely, and thank you for that question, Ms. Agnew. Really, at the end of the day, like I said, everybody's got a voice, and I want everybody to be heard. I want to make sure that no matter what the color of skin, no matter where you come from, whether you're an immigrant, not, everybody to me, I think anybody that's out there in Jonesboro that knows me, I've never met a stranger, and I've always been more than happy to help anybody that's ever come and they've ever asked for help in any way, shape, or form. And I want to serve the city of Jonesboro. The city of Jonesboro has been so good to me and the people in it, and at the end of the day, we're once again all in this together. And if anybody, no matter where they come from, what the color of their skin may be, they've always got a open door that they can come and they can talk to me about their problems, and I promise to listen, and I'll do my best to resolve any problems that they may have.
All right, so that's your final answer?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. I know we're playing like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. By the way, if anybody wants to donate us $1 million, we'll definitely accept it. We definitely thank... My technology's not want to act right. Okay. Like I said, we definitely thank each candidate for their time doing this debate. It's definitely been a very lively and definitely inspiring and informational debate. We are now going to get into... Oh, you still... I need some more coffee, y'all. I'm going to fire myself. I'm going to have to fire myself. No, I can't do that. All right, Mrs. Agnew, 2 minutes to rebut. I apologize.
Okay. I want to address what I feel like is an elephant in the room with me and Mr. Hogan, because I think, opposite of Mr. Hogan, that anybody in the times that we are living in now, and with the way things are in this country, anybody that would be so blind as to say that color doesn't matter is dangerous. Color does matter. Racism matters. Racism still exists. Discrimination matters. Discrimination still exists. And I'm not talking about quotas, Mr. Hogan. Discrimination is not quotas. Discrimination is just simply saying that everyone should be treated equal, which is something you claim that you aspire to. But make no mistake about it, that there are issues that concern one segment of the community, and if the entire community doesn't support addressing some of those issues will never be resolved, and Jonesboro will never be the great city that it needs to be. So yes, race matters, Black lives matter, and until you realize that, then I'm afraid you are the dangerous person for the city council.
All right, and we're going to leave it there. And I guess this is a good transition to... All right, Q, help me out because I seem to be forgetting stuff. We're going in to say something nice, right?
Yes.
We'll start with Mr. Emerson on this one. All right, so you now... Let me rewind the talk bit a little bit. All right, so the way this will work, each candidate will have 2 minutes, and during the 2 minutes, you have to say something nice about each of your two opponents. So again, let's get this clock restarted, and we will go with Mr. Emerson.
Sure, definitely. And thank you for the opportunity once again. And Miss Emma's sitting across from me here, so I'll start with her, and I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you've already done for the city of Jonesboro.
You mean Mrs. Agnew?
Miss Agnew. What did I say?
Miss Emerson.
Miss Emerson.
I'm not your wife.
Erica is going to be mad tonight.
I'm not
Sorry,
your mama.
yes.
I don't imagine you was thinking.
All right, let's rewind the timer. All right, so go ahead, Mr. Emerson.
Yeah, sure. Miss Agnew, thank you once again for the work that you've done for the city of Jonesboro. I know last night I heard you say that you worked on the community block development grant programs through the housing and urban development programs, and I've worked for many nonprofits and everything else, and those have been very beneficial to some of their projects that they've done. So that's always been something that I think has helped the city of Jonesboro. So thank you for doing all that work and for basically finding grant money that was out there for the city of Jonesboro. That's fantastic, and it's definitely made the city a better place. And to Mr. Hogan, I want to say thank you for your service. I hadn't got an opportunity to meet you in person yet or anything else, and I'd just like to shake your hand and say thank you. And thank you for, I know what you said, that you were in the medical profession, for all the lives that you've helped and for all the, possibly the lives that you saved. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you bring to the table. And even as we move forward and everything else, I think that helping people is what we can all agree upon today, and I sure do appreciate your time and for running for city council, and you as well, Miss Agnew.
All right. So let's flip this, and let me get my clock back up here. Why is my clock? Oh, not want to act right. Been a long day, y'all, but it is all good. Pause. Dang it. Here we go. All right, Mr. Hogan, you now have 2 minutes again to say something positive about each of your opponents.
Okay, I would start with Ms. Agnew. I love your passion. I love it. The dedication that you have and the emotion that you put into everything that you do. I'm more of a cold, logical person, and that sometimes comes off as uncaring. And so the passion that you can show, I really admire that. And as for Mr. Emerson, you're obviously a very intelligent. You're very well spoken. You speak like a politician, which is something that I don't do very well. Yeah, I'm very blunt. I'm very plain spoken. And maybe if I could speak in the way that Mr. Emerson speaks, there wouldn't be an elephant in the room. I'm not trying to make any kind of foment any kind of animosity there. So I would say Miss Emerson, Mr. Emerson, intelligence and your obvious ability to speak well, and Miss Agnew, your passion and your dedication.
All right, is that your final answer?
That is it.
All right, so let's get this clock reset now. Mrs. Agnew.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hogan, I will say I admire your honesty and your candor. A lot of times people just say what they think people want to hear, but I really admire your honesty and your candor. And you did say a couple of things that I totally agree with about the homelessness situation, some other things. And, so there are some great ideas. You do have some good ideas. And so it's been a pleasure talking with you. And like Mr. Emerson, I have not met you yet. I was hoping to meet both of you gentlemen this morning. But I wish you well in your career and wish you well during this race. And Mr. Emerson, it has been a pleasure meeting you. We saw each other last night briefly, and I have enjoyed getting to know you. You are a very pleasant gentleman and very charming, and so it is a pleasure. You've done some homework, I can tell, on running for this race, and so I wish you well as well in your career and on the council and in the race.
All right, we thank you for that. We're going to reset this clock, and we are going to now go into closing statements, and we will begin with Mr. Hogan. 2-minute closing statement.
Okay, I'm a plain regular guy. I'm not a politician, but I don't see that as a disadvantage. I see it actually as an advantage. I'm not stuck in dogmatic thinking. I'm more of an outside-the-box and straightforward person, and as Ms. Agnew said, I'm not one to tell you what I think you want to hear. I'm one to tell you what I think you need to hear. And what I want to do on City Council is look for those practical, long-term solutions to the issues and problems that Jonesboro and the people of Jonesboro face. And when I say long-term, I don't mean this year or this election cycle. I'm talking about things that my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren can benefit from.
Is that it?
And again, that's my conciseness.
All right.
I try not to rattle on.
All right. We thank you for that. We will now go to Mrs. Agnew.
Okay. Well, thanks again to the listeners for all the great questions, and I am going to try to, give an answer to all these questions once I get home. But thank you again for having us. And I just want to encourage people to make sure that you go to the polls and vote. Early voting starts October 19th. If you're absentee voting, please mail that ballot in early. If you put a couple of stamps on it, it'll get there a lot faster because it'll be treated as first-class mail. So please vote. I encourage you to vote. Vote for your choice, whoever you please. I would ask that you vote for me, but just make sure that you vote, whether it's for me or either one of these other fine gentlemen. But please do vote your choice. We have to vote. So I encourage you to do that. And like I say, hopefully you'll vote for me. And hopefully you'll see me sitting on the council in January.
All righty. We will now go to Mr. Emerson.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, guys. At the end of the day, it's the city of Jonesboro has a great problem at hand, and it's that they've got a great slate of candidates for many different races. And of course, I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support for Ward 1, Position 2 for the Jonesboro City Council. It is a citywide election. No matter what ward that you live in, you can vote for every city council seat. Once again, born, raised, city of Jonesboro, spent my entire life working here, family, raising two boys in the city, and I'm all about public safety being my number one priority, and I want to serve people. I want to serve the city of Jonesboro. I want to solve problems. Solving problems is what I wake up and what I'm ready to do. No matter, I've always told somebody at the bank that there's never an answer of no. There's always an answer of how can we make it work? How can we best advise somebody to get them where they want to be? And that's something that I want to do for the citizens of the city of Jonesboro. I want to be a bridge builder. I want to be the ear that you can come and you can talk to about anything, and I'm going to try not to take the whole minute here. So I would appreciate your support. I'd appreciate your vote, and I've been endorsed by the local firefighters union and the local Fraternal Order of Police, and once again, public safety is a high priority for me for our entire city, and making sure that everybody makes it home and gets to lay their head down at night. And I finished 18 seconds early.
All right, and we thank each of you for your closing statements. I want to let Kubila have the last word.
I just want to say thank you to each of you for giving us your time, and for one, taking the pledge, the step to even run for this position. I just want to say this to everyone. Please make sure that, if you are elected, you stick to your platform and stick to the things that you talked about. And even maybe incorporate some of the things your opponent brought to the table. In order for this to be a great community, it's going to take all of us and all ideas. I know we don't live in a bubble. We don't live in a utopia. However, we can strive to be a better community. And so I hope that all the residents take time to get to know the candidates, and the candidates continue their journey to get to know the residents, especially in their ward, and then branch out to the city as a whole. So thank you. And whoever's elected, you will see this face or hear this voice come January. So get ready.
Well, I think one thing we can all agree on is definitely a pretty voice and a pretty face to be looking at. All right, that's going to do it for this today. Thank you for each and every one of you for tuning in. Of course, KLEK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, we do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. This was provided for informational purposes only. I hope you got registered to vote because yesterday was the last day. So that's step one. Step 2 is now to vote. Election day is November 3rd. Early voting starts October 19th. Make sure that you vote. If you are doing absentee ballot, like Mrs. Agnew said, get that ballot in ASAP, preferably dropping it back off at the clerk's office. But if you do have to mail it, like she said, drop that stamp on it so that it gets back in time. Of course, quick programming note, our debates will resume this Thursday. We're going to have Ward 3. We'll have the incumbent Chris Gibson and Mrs. Linda Denny. They are going to be debating as well, so make sure that you check that out. Tomorrow is first Wednesday of the month. We'll have Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott. We also have a debate that will be streaming from the Kiwanis Club tomorrow as well. I believe that's one of these state rep races. I don't have my calendar in front of me. But again, thank you to each and every one of you that tuned in. May you guys have a great and blessed day. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower, this is KLEK-LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council.
Jonesboro's community radio